we go.
Hello, everyone.
Workshop of the McAllen Board of Trustees of the Independent School District will take place today, Wednesday, June the 2nd, 2021, beginning at 5 p.m. at the Texas Art Texas Staff Development Building of Achieve Early College High School, which is at 1601 North 27th Street, McAllen, Texas, 78501. At this meeting, there are discussions by the board on the items and subjects listed below. Public comments related to this meeting will be held as follows. Please follow procedures which you can locate on McAllen-ISD.org/page/public-comments. Public comments may be made in person, subject to social distancing requirements at the Texas Art Texas room at the Staff Development Building of Achieve Early College High School, which is again at 1601 North 27th Street, McAllen, Texas, 78501, or by use of the following video site, which is McAllen-ISD.org/page/school-board-meetings, or by telephone call to the following number, 956-618-6094. This meeting has been called to order at 5 p.m. We'll go to item 2, which is public comment. No one signed up for public comment today. We'll now proceed to item 3, which is discussion of the 2021-2022 budget, which is a continuation of the general fund overview of the committed held damage funds, ESSER 3, Update 2, and the Human Resource Update. Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Texas Education Agency and School Board Policy CE require McAllen ISD to prepare a budget of anticipated expenditures and revenues before June 19th and approved by the Board of Trustees by June 30th. Ms. Cynthia Medrano Richards, our Assistant Superintendent for Business Operations, will present the 7th budget workshop for the 2021-2022 budget. Ms. Richards.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Tonight, we will be going over the general fund overview. This was a continuation from the prior budget workshop. The departments remaining to review their budgets will be the divisions of human resources, district operations, and business operations. Then we'll move on to a review of the committed funds as it's related to the hail damage. And then we'll discuss the ESSER 3, Update 2, and we will conclude with human resources updates with a stipend overview. At this time, Ms. Benavides would like to introduce the Director of Special Funding.
Thank you, Ms. Richards. I did just want to take a minute to introduce Ms. Laura Williams. She's here with us somewhere.
Right behind
She
you.
is. And she is going to be our Director of Special Funding, and in this case, special funding specific to ESSER 3. And she's already hit the ground running. There's a lot of work for us to do, especially if we want to submit our application by June 25th. So we have 3 strong weeks to get this done, and there's been a lot of work already being done. But I did want to introduce her because she'll be delivering some future board updates on ESSER 3.
Thank you. Thank you for Ms. Williams for being here this evening for the
Thank you so much for that introduction. Now we will move on to the department budgets, again a continuation from the prior workshop, and we will begin with Human Resources, the Division of Human Resources.
Good evening.
evening.
I'm going to start with Human Resources, and I'll go to Employee Benefits and then Student Support Services. Next slide, please. So the very top, can you make that larger by chance? Thank you. So Human Resources on top. So we had a variance. I'm just going to cover the variance is $4,680 and $6,100. So that's overtime expenses related. So that's with the new Skyward system, and also in the fall when the teachers come back and all that stuff, we always have a peak, if you will, in overtime expenses. And I'm skipping down 2 lines to 6,300 supplies and materials. It's an overage of $15,587. So that'll be for the next year's retirement service awards banquet. We didn't have that last year due to COVID, so that's an expense we will have in 21-22. Skipping down to employee benefits, you'll see that we had an overage variance of $26,871. We had some personnel moves. We took one of our HR specialists, our position control specialists, and put her over in the benefits so she can handle all the FMLA sick leave, so kind of a one-stop shop for that, and was very helpful during the COVID situation. So that's the $26,871. And you'll see the increase of variance of $2,200 is consulting. Turner Consulting, they assist with our year-end audits related to workman's compensation. jumping down to student support services, we had an overage of $62,140 in the 6,100 payroll costs. We did some personnel moves. We brought one on from transportation, and we sent a receptionist out to Rowe High School. So that's a $62,140. And that's the variances for those three departments. Any questions?
Any questions from the board?
Is that the total, the expenditures, is that the total of the entire district or just that one department?
In the summer?
Right, so I'm wondering with the adjustments, what does that put us at in percentage-wise? Our payroll percentage?
Our payroll percentage will be just a little over 80%. I believe it ended up calculating at 80.13%. 80.13%. And that was, it's several factors. It also has to do with last year's, or the HB3 increases kind of set us off with that rate moving forward. Then we do have the adjustments not only to the compensation of 2.5%, but also the employer contributions that we're increasing this year. So it relates to the health insurance employer contributions of $25 per employee per month, and the unemployment, which is $2.60 per employee per month.
Okay.
The standard that we're seeing now is anywhere between 80 to 85% of the total budget.
What concerns me is that right now, this last year, we've gotten 100% of our ADA. If that would be adjusted to, what is it, 96 that we usually get, 96%, what would that percentage be at? Would it be above 85%, or we'd still be at 80%?
We'd still be at about the 80%. That 80.13. When we calculate that 80.13%, it is based on the proposed budget for next year.
Oh, I got you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So that's why that would remain
I'm
the same.
understanding. Okay, perfect.
Any other questions from the board? Just for clarification, the district did not get 100% of its membership. It got its ADA, and that percentage was what? During this pandemic, this past year. In
The
other words,
percentage
there may be a misunderstanding that the district got, because we were whole harmless, but we didn't rely on the whole harmless because we had more student attending class at a higher percentage than the whole harmless would have held us to.
Okay.
But we did not get 100% funding from the state based on membership. It was still ADA.
It was still ADA, and what we found is that right now our remote ADA, and we were just discussing it this morning because we did receive clarification on that calculation for ADA
Yes.
today.
Yes.
So our remote ADA is a little over 97%, but the state has held us to 95.4% of that remote learning in terms of funding for the district. So what that has actually done for us, it is holding us harmless for this year. At the state level, that was assigned to us by TEA. So
Okay.
we will be using that particular ADA to calculate our funding for this year. So what we're going to see once we come to the board on June 14th on the final budget amendment for the district is we are going to see our state funding being reduced as a result of that clarification that we received today. So you are correct. We are not receiving 100% of enrollment. We're not receiving 100% of ADA either. We're at about 97%, and we are being capped at 95.4%. So that is going to result in a reduction in the state funding that we have had budgeted all along this year. We had not adjusted that particular line item. But with today's clarification on that calculation and that amount that they're going to hold us to, the 95.4%, there will be a decrease in state funding as a result of that. And that we will come to the board with that adjustment, that downward adjustment on June 14th, our final budget amendment of the year.
Well, it's too good to be true. It would look like we were going to be in a much better place.
Absolutely. Our interpretation from what we had heard back in February versus the update we received this morning really did change the entire projection on state funding for the district.
Thank you. Trustee Alicea, do you have any questions?
No.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Trustee Farina.
My apologies. I don't know if this was mentioned earlier and I just missed it,
But my question is, does this budget that we're looking at include a proposed increase for our teachers already?
Yes, sir. All these budget, department budgets that we're looking at, that we started last workshop and are completing this workshop, do include the 2.5% increase to teachers, librarians, and all district-wide staff.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, trustee Farina. Ms. Richards, you have the floor.
Thank you. That will conclude Mr. Miller's presentation, and we'll now move over to Ms. Benavides.
Thank you. The budget today will be these various departments. I'll start with the top, org 731. That's basically my org, and it just really has me and a shared secretary. My secretary is shared with Ms. Richards. No change there other than the typical annual increases with regards to all of the benefit areas. Ms. Lisa Cavazos' area, the strategic outreach, the student outreach team, no change here either, except that we do have an employee there that is grant funded. That grant is coming to an end. So until we resolve how we're going to place that position has transferred from the grant fund to our general fund. That's why it's showing that there's an increase. So we just need to find a resolution there. Org 800 is warehouse. There's been quite a few changes in warehouse. We did receive feedback from the TASB study, and we've also known that we have an opportunity there for some staff reductions. We have been doing that through attrition. In one situation, we were able to transition a warehouse employee to technology as a technician position, which was severely needed during the pandemic and still needed now. So not a lot of change there other than with attrition, we are still looking at further staff reductions there. In technology, this is an area that was hard hit during the pandemic, obviously trying to support our district in remote learning. Quite a few changes in this area. Like I mentioned earlier, one transfer from the warehouse. We had some reclassification of technicians in our scales to be market competitive, so that was a welcome change in the department. We are also proposing the addition of 2 additional technicians. The TASB study actually highlighted the need, when they compared us to peer districts, the need for 6 technicians. We are going to start with 2 and then organize. It's hard to bring, as you may know, it's better to start sort of judiciously, and we're going to do that, and we're looking at the addition of 2 technicians, and then we'll go from there so that we can support our campuses. In addition to that, we have our Org 808, which is our standard FMO organization. Not a lot of change here. We also did get some feedback through the TASB study on 8 positions that they felt that based on peer, we should reduce. We have been able to reduce 2 positions in grounds, and the TASB study also suggested the addition of 2 project managers. We're going to start with 1. I believe that was discussed at a previous meeting as well. So we do want to start with 1. We anticipate a lot of work coming our way with ESSER, in addition to the maintenance tax note that has already created a bit more work. So those are the primary changes there. Again, all of our reductions are always through attrition, so sometimes it works out, sometimes it takes a little bit longer. In transportation, we actually have 2 vacancies at the moment. We are only going to replace 1, not the second. And there has been a reclassification and maybe a redefinition of experience. So our pay scale for bus drivers has been competitive. Other school districts have been maybe a little more competitive than us, We have tried to keep up. Bus drivers, as you know, continues to always be a very challenging position to staff. However, we have done some reclassifications of how we interpret experience. In the past, we only gave credit when a bus driver actually had experience only driving a bus and driving children specifically. It was really difficult to limit it to that experience when other school districts were giving credit for other types of driving, truck driving. Some of these folks drive very hazardous materials, things like that. So we wanted to be able to give credit for that experience as well. So we were able to do an evaluation to help our bus drivers claim more of that credit, therefore actually see a bump given the same pay scale that we had. And it actually made us a little more competitive based on our peers. So that was helpful there with transportation, and it has helped quite a bit. One other change that we are going to be funding in transportation is the addition of student level tracking. We have right now bus level tracking. If you have the Here Comes the Bus app, you're able to see where the bus is. We want to extend that to students. It's a more involved project, but a parent would essentially get alerts telling them when the student has boarded the bus, when the student has arrived at a specific location, when they've left the bus, and we really want to be able to provide that level of transparency to our parents. And just with the Here Comes the Bus, we've seen a drastic drop in the calls to transportation because parents can see on their app where the bus is, and that has already been very helpful. So we want to take that to the next level and be able to start that with students. The pandemic slowed us down a little bit because we were going to launch this much earlier, but nonetheless, we were able to postpone the funds to this coming year. Department of Health Services, the reduction there is mainly, we had through attrition one nurse position. It was a central position. It was not a campus position that was eliminated and not replaced.
Would that be like a floater?
It was at the time. Well, at the time, yes, we've had sort of at central kind of a floater, but then it got redefined as a specialized nurse. But then we were able to meet those needs with our campus folks, and so we've reshuffled and reorganized so that we could still meet that need through our campus nurse at Achieve. In student operations, not a lot of change there either. This is the team that oversees schedules, grades, all of the nuts and bolts of processing students through our systems and making sure that we're compliant with PEIMS and whatnot. Last but not least, our child nutrition program. This program has seen a lot of change this year. We expanded our supper program from 3% participation to 40% participation. This was a program that is able to give that third meal to our students, and it's a heartier meal than just a snack. It's an actual supper. We've been anxious to expand this program. Since I joined the district, this is a program we really wanted to grow. The pandemic got in the way, but it actually helped us quite a bit because we were able to leverage the delivery of the meals and the distribution of meals and include supper in that bundle. Of course, when you add another meal program, you add labor cost. But even with the labor cost, the increase in revenue of $4.5 million easily offset the cost of labor. And the good news is that since this is a self-sustaining program, right, it's its own fund, the advantage here is that the program actually pays general fund back. Last year, we estimated $776,000, and this coming year, we're going to increase that to $876,000. So the child nutrition program will be contributing an extra $100,000 back to the district.
Thank you, Ms. Benavides.
Any questions for the district operations budget we just heard? Hear me? Go ahead, trustee.
I want to go back to that position that you said was the grant funding was expired, I guess. So did we not apply for that grant again?
The sourcing entity no longer received funds from their entity,
Shame on them.
so we're a sub-grantee of those funds. So that entity did not receive the funding from their entity so that we could apply.
So just a question, normal practice, Dr. Gonzalez, if we have a position that's there because of a grant, or we're fortunate enough to be able to use positions because of grant, and that grant runs out, what happens to that position?
We look at that individual skill set and their performance, and should we have an opportunity that matches their skill set and their performance is up to par, then we could put them in a position that we have. And if we don't have a position or their performance isn't up to par, then we let them go as a grant ends.
That's it.
Thank you.
Ms. Richards, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. The final division is the Division of Business Operations, and we'll begin with the very first budget, which is the budget of the Assistant Superintendent for Business Operations. The proposed budget for next year is $254,721. That's an increase of $8,301, and that is primarily as a result of the 2.5% compensation increase on there, and the rest is just adjusting budgets to actual within the class categories. The next budget is for the Purchasing Services Department. The proposed budget for next year is $729,714. That is a decrease of $15,310, and that's as a result of a position that was not replaced during the year. And the department is able to operate efficiently with the staff they currently have. The next department is the Department of Business Services. The proposed budget is $434,642. That's $434,642. That's an increase of $15,905, again, mainly in the compensation payroll area, and again, readjusting within the other class categories. The next budget is for the Department of Accounting. That budget for next year is proposed at $700,662, and that is an increase of $10,348, again, primarily due to compensation proposal, and then again, readjustments based on actual expenditures within the other class categories. And the final budget we have is that of payroll. The proposed budget is $482,904. That's an increase of $30,948. Again, as a result of the compensation increase that's factored in there, and then readjustments to actuals based on their expenditures this year. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Richards. Any questions from the board regarding business operations budget?
No, Mr. President, but if, I will ask, because we're still in the same title of the same workshop and we've rarely received this information, that if this is the last presentation, if we can go back to athletics and fine arts when it's time.
Okay.
This concludes this presentation, and you wanted us to go back to the athletics and the fine arts presentation? I have it, okay.
If I still have the floor. Mr.
Yes, sir, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr.
So here's a question that I've had for numerous years, and I think we see it now in our classrooms, in our schools, as they shrink in size, we seem to shrink the administration. We have some schools residing with one principal, not an assistant principal. Yet when I look at fine arts and even athletics, I see that there's some positions that are given full stipends, and it's not based on the amount of kids that are participating. For example, you look at high school track, you have one school probably with 60 participants, you have another school with 12 participants, yet each coach is getting the same stipend. You have a golf team that has 13 individuals, you have another golf coach that has 2 individuals, and they're getting the same stipend. So I challenge the administration and our directors to to set a par level. And what that does is, in order for a coach to keep a stipend, he or she has to keep their numbers up. I recall back when I was in high school, we would have Coach Alex Leal, who's a legend in football, but every day he was in the middle of the class, in the middle of the hallways, and recruiting kids to play football. And recruiting kids that if you were going to play football, you had to be in track or you had to be in something else, because we all know that no child should be at home at 4 o'clock. So kids were always active, and I think that sometimes without that directive, people become very complacent. If we look at fine arts, for example, again, through my experience when I was in high school, we have stipends for a prose coach and a poetry coach. To me, the same coach coaches prose and poetry. The same coach that coaches extemporaneous speaking is also the same coach that coaches impromptu speaking. The same coach that coaches Lincoln Douglas debate is the same coach that coaches cross-examination debate. And so what I see also is, as I explore the high school campuses, there's one campus that is very strong in fine arts and very strong in our UIL events, and there's other campuses that are not, yet both coaches or all three coaches, and in some cases 4 coaches, are receiving the same stipend. I don't think that's fair. So I think that the administration should challenge themselves to put a par level. And what that does as well is it gets us to recruit more kids, because as I look at the stipends, there's a lot of ones here that I don't think is very fair to have versus other ones. I mean, there's some, the prose and poetry coach makes more than the ROTC, some of the ROTC stipends, and we get to witness their success and what they do at every event and every football game that we have. And obviously, those kids practice for a lot of hours. So that's just my only point when we look at these stipends, to make sure that it's not just, oh, I signed up, I don't have any kids, but I'm the sponsor. I think that we need to do the due diligence to make sure that the kids are participating. That's why we've allotted this money, to be able to be successful for our kids and for our programs.
I agree 100%. That seems like something that the campus principal could sign off on, like they can come up with the criteria and put that onto them.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments? Good observation, good comments. Ms. Richards, you were done with your presentation. Any follow-up at this time, or you want to go ahead and move forward to passing it on to?
If we don't have any further questions, then we'll continue with the presentation.
Yes, sir. You have the floor.
Mr. President, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. If I may, I have a quick question following up Mr. Suarez's points.
We already adjourned.
All right. Trustee Forena, you now have the floor. Go ahead, proceed with your question.
As much as I appreciate what Trustee Suarez has brought up, would that not be considered a performance paycheck, and wouldn't that be legal or illegal?
No, it's the same thing as, well, I'm not an accountant, but to me, it's the same.
Go ahead,
criteria. It would be the same criteria that you have for participation on campuses based on, like what Trustee Suarez said. A certain amount of number triggers it.
In answer to your question, if you could hear Trustee Aliceda, could you hear her comments or her perspective on it? Trustee Forena?
I'm sorry, I did not.
You want to go ahead and repeat it into the
Well,
mic?
I guess.
Or we want to defer to staff. Anybody want to take that question?
I'll take it.
Go ahead, Trustee Suarez.
Tony, I think that just like we put a par level for our principals, where we distinguish whether or not we should have an assistant principal, because we have enough kids on the campus, should be the same. We're not asking the coach or the UIL instructor, if he or she doesn't win, then the stipend's taken away. It's if people aren't participating or enough kids are participating. I mean, if you're going to be the sponsor for the prose and poetry, you have to have enough slots to send to UIL. That's 6 kids. But when we don't even go to tournaments or even go to the events or go to the UIL tournament or have a full team and getting the full stipend, I don't think we're getting the best bang for our buck. That's just the only comment I'm making.
Trustee Farina, there's,
And trustee,
go ahead.
I totally appreciate and agree with what you're saying, but I just want to make sure that within legality, we're not prefacing the stipend on the amount of kids that are participating. I think on my side, as somebody who spent every Saturday at different high schools across South Texas in UIL events, competing in prose and poetry and cross-ex and Lincoln Douglas debate, I think the more kids, the merrier. I think that's better off. But my concern is just that if we're going to tell a sponsor, you have to have 18 kids or you're not going to get that stipend, I want to make sure that we're doing it within the legal boundaries.
Fair enough. Just for clarification, from a legal standpoint, the contract that the teacher would have is the document for which they get their compensation and salaries. The stipends is over and above that contract, is my understanding. And so that's going to be based on the administration making those assignments either through the principals or the various departments as to who gets assigned to do what role with what group of students as to what stipend they will receive. To Trustee Farina and Trustee Suarez and Trustee Alicedo's point, which I would concur with, and I'm sure others would, is that we just want to make sure that when these staff are being assigned these functions and therefore getting the stipend, that there be a minimum requirement of number of students participating for the full stipend to be triggered. And at this point, it's kind of I guess a consensus of a directive to the administration to look into it for us. So part of looking into it, Trustee Farina, would obviously include legal counsel reviewing, but I think we're all on the right path that the administration is going to look into the matter and see how they can better utilize the stipends to make sure there's student growth in these various activities. Is that the general consensus? Everybody's kind of nodding here, so that's where we are. Go ahead.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I concur with every word that you've said. I just want to make sure that we are not overstepping our legal bounds.
Yes, sir.
But I'm in 100% agreement where we need to have the most competitive students. And sometimes, you know, we want the quantity over the quality because we can build that quality up.
Mr. President, if I may.
Yes, sir, Dr. Gonzalez.
In working with the team, we will look into the request at this point, but I think the goal for us as an administration is to fill those slots, to get kids participating, then it takes care of itself.
There you go.
So we will look at upping participation and creating a sense of urgency around every program. And I'm looking at our new director for fine arts at this point. I know Paula's not in the room right now, but is she? There she is. Paula was behind Ms. Nava. Okay, so yes, as we look at the future is numbers to get participation to fill the slots. And when we accomplish that goal, it takes care of itself.
Fair enough. There you go. Trustee Farina, did you hear the superintendent's comments?
I heard and appreciate it, and I'm willing to partner up with Trustee Suarez on a Lincoln Douglas debate against any of the high school kids that would like to take us on.
All right, fair enough. Thank you. And unless there are any other questions from the board, we'll now proceed. Go ahead, and you have the floor, Ms. Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Saliba. The next slide is an update on our committed fund balance as it relates to the hail damage that occurred in 2012. The committed revenues were $19,956,068. At the end of June 30th, 2020, actual expenditures were $19,440,442. So as we began this fiscal year, the budget was $515,626. As of May 28th, 2021, year-to-date expenditures are $217,512, leaving a balance available of $298,114. The remaining funds are currently committed to the Crockett Administration Annex roof replacement, and this is dependent on future Crockett discussions.
Thank you, Ms. Richards. Any questions or comments? Fair enough. Thank you. Thanks for the report. Appreciate the update.
Thank you. The next item we have is an ESER 3 Update 2 regarding the stakeholder survey, and Ms. Benavides will be discussing that.
Thank you, Ms. Richards. We have been actively pursuing the public input portion of the ESER 3 requirements, and we are anxious to hear from our community. We created a website dedicated to the ESER 3. Let me bring it up.
I can come up.
No worries.
Yes.
And we wanted to, in that website, we're going to be posting all of the documentation required for ESER 3. We also have a survey through a link on our website. We've also communicated this survey to all of our parents and families. We've communicated to employees. And we also met this morning with all of our IS directors so that they can engage in meaningful conversations with all of their stakeholders. For example, Rocio Nava with the English language learners, Dr. Bibon with her constituents in the migrant program, et cetera, and et cetera, because we want everyone to feel like they also have a voice in this process. It is incredibly important for us, for our community to feel that way. So we are going to be doing quite a bit of outreach for that. I'm happy to announce that we have 1,323 responses to our survey so far, with people giving us feedback on the use of funds, which is great. We're going to be pouring through that data and reaching some conclusions so that we can fold it into our plans, and we're going to be presenting that to you at the next meeting. So we're very excited about that. Once we go through all of this public input and all of this outreach, then we'll start forming the plan, because like I said, it's going to be a mad dash from now until June 25th when we want to submit it. It's not due until July 27th, so we have a little bit longer, but we'd love to get it done by June 25th.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
I filled mine out.
Who came up with the questions?
So that's a
Because
great
they're
question.
excellent questions.
Yes,
They're
I'm
very
so-
thought-provoking.
I'm so glad you asked that. If you look at it, it's like a snowflake. No two surveys are alike. If you go out to every school district, you'll find very, very different surveys. You'll find some school districts with 2 questions, and you'll find some school districts with 35 questions. So it just depends. I poured over a lot of examples. We took an example from TA, school districts, and we just came up with what we felt was the best way to present it, and the easiest way to present it, but still get as much rich information. And so we just worked really hard to make sure that we could provide something that was meaningful, not too time-consuming, but still gave us some rich engagement and good information.
The answers and the way you can move them in
Right.
the order that you want,
Yes.
how was that determined? How was that decided?
Yeah, actually, in conversations
Because that was
with our-
brilliant, by the way. That was awesome.
Yeah, and in conversations with our internal team, Ms. Adele actually brought up the notion that if you just include the options, they're going to think everything's important. We really need folks to think hard about what's most important. And so
And prioritize it.
that's where the prioritization, because we have to prioritize every day, right? There aren't enough dollars to fulfill everything. And so we really wanted to ensure that as folks were filling this out, they were thinking hard about, if you had to prioritize, how would you prioritize? Because at the end of the day, this is an exercise in need, but also prioritization.
I will tell you a couple of families that I've talked to that have taken it, the spouses going back and forth because they have difference of perspective of those priorities. Kind of
It's
interesting.
not easy.
And I had some send me some screenshots and they say, what do you think? I said, great answers.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that was their input, obviously.
Right. And then at the end, we still wanted to provide an open-ended opportunity to say, if we haven't addressed what you felt the needs were in these options above, please feel free to send us anything that you would like to include. And so we're going to take those also very seriously and review those answers as well.
Now, we have 30 different languages in the district spoken by our children. Are this available in all those languages?
Well, right
or-
now, it's only in English and Spanish.
Okay. All right. If there are other populations that would like to participate, but it's not in their language, is that possibly?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, we'll make that available.
Thank you. Yes, sir, trustee.
I want to also say that I appreciate it because I've had some very vocal members of the community express to me that they liked it and they loved the fact that they could rank it. And so I'm happy to hear from them. They
Yes.
survey results.
Us too. Thank you.
Anyone else? Good work, by the way, very good. Thank you. Ms. Benavides, you still have the floor, so if you want to pass it off.
I am done with my
Yes,
report.
thank you, Ms. Benavides. The next item, that's an update regarding our Easter 3 Update 2, has to do with the proposed staff retention stipend, and Mr. Miller will discuss that area.
Good evening. Compensation plan is coming to the board on June 14th. Administration is recommending a 2.5% salary increase for all employees. What does that mean? $1,410 for teachers and librarians, and that's at the market median, and 2.5% for all other employees from classification midpoint. Been working with Mr. Kevin O'Hanlon about a retention stipend. In addition to the proposed compensation increase, administration is recommending a one-time payment of $1,250 in December 2021 to all full-time eligible employees as deemed allowable by the ESSER 3 fund. And as guidance is clarified daily, this one-time payment is contingent on allowability of the ESSER 3 funds. So I've got the board covered, drafted already. I tweaked it slightly today, got back in touch with Kevin O'Hanlon. Fine, he loves the way it reads. A lot of information on TASBO recently, how other districts are doing it. So Kevin is thumbs up at this point, so we are proceeding forward with the June 14th presentation to the board for both items.
Well, this is the first. I've done a lot of negotiation. Don't really hold them to their demand, and I was inquiring about 1,000, so 1,250 from my standpoint is it seems fair, much more fair. I'm saying I appreciate the administration looking into the matter. Hopefully, it does get allowed and get to move forward.
Yeah, if I may add,
Yes.
Mr. President, most districts in this, I've seen TASBO's are down around the 500 range, so I applaud also the administration for 1,250.
Yes, Trustee Bill.
Mr. Miller, that 1,250 full-time employees, if they start November, do they get the 1,250? Or do you have to have?
Okay, great question. And we'll model it after remember the $300 payment we did last year? So you had to have been employed on September 15th and still employed on December 1st last year. So we'll model it very similar to that.
So new hires would be considered full-time?
As long as they're employed, full-time employees were hired as of September 15th.
Even though they weren't working during COVID?
Well, remember, this is not a holiday pay like we did last time. This is under the ESSER fund, it's in an effort to make sure you retain as many of your staff for the coming year, because every district is finding shortfalls, and that's a big concern. And so that's what this ESSER funds is supposed to allow. But you can elaborate, Mr. Miller.
No, that's exactly right. And also, in addition to recruiting and retention, obviously we need to retain our employees, but it's also to help us maintain a competitive pay structure within the region too.
It's again, it's a one-time deal, and it's in an effort to, as other districts do have holiday pay, and while we were hoping holiday pay this time, it doesn't seem like the administration's recommending holiday pay, which would come out of our normal budget operation. And this is the case for other districts too, they're struggling, but our competitors around us are providing holiday pay again this year. And so this is another way for the district to leverage funds that are available in place of holiday pay for this one time.
I was just asking clarification on what full-time employees for December 20. That's all.
And I was just clarifying for the public and any employee that may be wondering why we're looking at this in place of holiday pay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Next, Mr. Miller will also be discussing a stipend overview.
You printed that for us in addition to it being online, right? This is,
Yes, sir.
okay.
And I do apologize, there was some last-minute adjustments on these stipends, so I included for your table there a summary of all the stipend changes. So we'll start, if you will, bear with me, sorry. Okay. So there were no stipend changes in extra duty pay. So extra duty pay, you'll see is on page 4 and 5 of the attachment I laid in front of you. And then fine arts is no changes on page 6. Grant funded projects, page 7, no changes again. Although Project Ride will probably be going away sometime this fall, I understand. That's the latest anyways, they are still looking at that. State and federal programs, no changes, page 7, and of course UIL on page 11. So I'm just going to proceed with the slides here. I know it's very hard to read, so that's why I want to make sure you all had a copy of the package itself. So on page 1 is the proposed athletic program stipends. In the top left, you'll see crossed out in red is cheer. It used to be cheer head coach. We just, eliminating the head coach portion of it. Going down that page, golf assistant, that is new. There will be 3 positions, 15 extra days, and $5,500. Slide
Question.
down.
That was a red flag to me. Golf assistant. Every team's gonna get one?
Yes, and I gotta have Paula Gonzalez here.
Just when you thought you were out.
The golf assistant is for one at each high school, and it would also pertain to making sure that we have some numbers. It wouldn't go if the numbers are real low.
Boom. Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Which wanted you to get up, miss?
Good answer, Coach.
Trustee
job,
Farina.
Sorry, Coach Gonzalez, I might need you back on the mic on this one. When we talk about golf assistant, that's just going to be one particular person to assist with both teams, or are we looking, I think all of our golf teams are now coached by men. Do we have a possibility of a women's golf coach coming on board? Is that something?
The way that we have our stipend set up, we have one golf coach, one head coach, and each golf coach at the high school coaches both the boys and the girls. So the assistant coach would not be designated as a boys or a girls coach, but would be the assistant coach to assist in both the boys and the girls. And I think this goes in line with our wrestling, similar to wrestling, to tennis, to swimming, powerlifting. That's the way that we have it set up. It's not a boys coach and a girls coach, but it is a head coach and an assistant coach.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Before you leave, is there room here in this position? I think I know the answer to this, but I just want to hear it from you, to where they could hire a consultant to be the assistant golf coach? For example, I wouldn't want an assistant just to have an assistant and they don't have golf experience, but if you have a retired coach out there that's a golf coach and now just wants to work for a stipend, does the head coach have that luxury to hire he or she?
UIL states that to be coaching at the high school, and you must be a full-time employee, but it does allow a retired administrator or educator that has 20 years of experience to be able to come back and coach as long as they are not the head coach.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Any other questions from the board for Ms. Gonzalez before she?
We'll wait till she sits down.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
if you slide down to the middle school coaching positions, we're just eliminating the word head coach, so it's athletic coordinator plus coach. And if you slide over to the extra days, we added the word or. Also adding an assistant athletic coordinator at middle school level, 6 positions, 5 extra days for $2,200. Track coach, we're reducing it from 60 positions down to 48 positions, and then that summarizes the athletic changes for stipends. Any questions?
Yeah, there's a parent calling me because, in middle school, I don't see baseball or softball, and we've been talking about this for a couple of years already. Told you, Ms. Paula.
Sorry,
Just as she got comfortable.
she's not leaving.
I know that we've gotten a lot of interest and inquiries in regards to beginning a high school, middle school softball and baseball program. At this time, we didn't recommend it. What we want to do is we want to make sure that our practice fields are kind of upgraded so that we can start those programs. But there is definitely an interest. I know our surrounding school districts also have softball and baseball already.
So just one suggestion, as, I don't know how long it's going to take us to get our fields up to par. But I know that the city has done a great job of providing at least softball fields that perhaps we can work together with to use those facilities. Even if we have an inter-city league to where our teams just play each other, and maybe even baseball. We have those baseball fields out there. I don't know if one's big enough. I think the only one big enough is Cascade Park.
But even if we could use those, there'd only be 5 games or 6 games, but some participation versus no participation, because we are lagging behind.
Absolutely, and that's a great idea. That's how we've started our golf middle school program, where we compete within our own school district.
Okay, I'm not gonna ask you any more questions, I promise.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Trustee Elisa?
In the middle school, the assistant athletic coordinator, is that a head coach of something else, like the basketball coach is also the assistant? How does that work?
The requirement to be the middle school assistant athletic coordinator would be that they be a coach, that they coach a sport. We want to have some stipulations or some guidelines. It would be someone that is coaching. We want to put a maximum of three coaching stipends, and then to be able to do the middle school assistant athletic coordinator. It could be someone that is coaching 1 sport, or 2 sports, or 3 sports. But we do want it to be a coaching member, a member of the coaching staff.
So if they're, like, if I'm a basketball coach and the assistant athletic coordinator, I'm gonna get 4,400 versus the athletic coordinator, who's also the football coach, is gonna get 6,200.
Correct.
Okay. That's all, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Just if I may, as a comment, I would much rather see the assistant athletic coordinator, maybe be the head coach for 1 sport, but after that, focus on developing that person as an athletic coordinator, rather than saying this person is going to be the coach for 3 different sports as the head coach and the assistant athletic coordinator. I don't think that's fair for their potential for growth or success.
Actually, it's not a mandatory that they coach 3 sports. It's just a guideline that they can coach up to 3 sports. The way that we have it with our athletic coordinators is that they can coach a maximum of 3 sports. They can coach 4 sports only if there's a need, but they do coach no more than 3 sports, and the only requirement is that it be football and it be track. That's the way that it's set up right now. For the assistant athletic coordinator, they could coach 1 sport and be the assistant athletic coordinator, coach 2, or we don't want them to coach more than 3.
I would much rather, if they're going to be a coach, just 1 head coach, not be the head coach of basketball, not be the head coach of track and field, not be the head coach of swimming, and the assistant athletic coordinator. I mean, I don't have a problem with them being assistants in 2 of those 3, but I would hate for them to bear that brunt of being the head coach for 3 different programs and on top the assistant athletic coordinator, because serving all those needs, I don't know if they're going to be able to grow or maintain that energy that we look for.
Absolutely. And I think something to note is that at the middle school, we do not have head coaches of any of the sports.
Okay.
It's just the coaches. Like for football, we have 8 coaches. And of course, one of them will be the athletic coordinator. Swimming, you have 2 coaches. Tennis, you have 2, but we do not designate a head coach.
Appreciate that. Thank you, ma'am.
Any other questions for Mrs. Gonzalez before she leaves the podium again? Fair enough. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Paulo.
I do have a question regarding the elementary and middle school dual language teacher. And it was 1,500 and it's being increased to 1,700, which I'm fine with. It's just, it says to be determined the number of students. What was that, the number of students at the 1,500 rate, if we knew? Or if there was one?
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's not depending on the number of students. It is, maybe that's something that I should put in there. It's not depending on the number of students. Dual language teachers receive a stipend prior, this year they receive a stipend of 1,500. Next year, we're increasing it to 1,700, but it's not depending on the number of students because they serve a whole classroom.
So it should have, instead of to be determined, it probably should be not applicable?
Not
That would be fair?
applicable, yes.
Okay. I understand.
Yes, it
And
should
I'm
be
fine
an
with it
NA.
then.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll make that change.
And I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I think it's fair. Any other questions or comments?
So, Mr. President, I'll continue, if you don't mind. On the top right is advanced academics. Those are all new stipends. I'll go through them real quickly. On-ramps, dual teacher, 8 positions, $100 per section. STC dual teacher, 6 positions, $100 per section. AP plus on-ramps dual teacher, 7 positions, $200 a section. And AP plus STC dual teacher, 5 positions for $200 a section. So, any questions on advanced academic stipends? And on the bottom right of the slide there is the bilingual. I know we've covered a little bit on bilingual. Are there any other questions on the bilingual? I can go through the changes if you prefer. We'll go to the next page, and that is the CTE. It's on page 3 of your package.
I'm sorry, have you gotten to the part of paraprofessional staff dealing with interpreters? We haven't gotten that far.
Haven't gotten there, sir.
We're not there yet? Okay. You have the floor, go ahead.
Okay, so page 3 is CTE. So at the top, there's a change in Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America co-sponsors changing from 3 to 4. On the Texas PSTA law enforcement sponsor, it's changing from $2,500 down to $2,000. You'll see some, I call it cosmetic changes. There are some TX for Texas PSTA. Wasn't listed that way last year. And then the very bottom of that top section for high school's first tech challenge FTC robotic co-sponsor. It's new. There's 3 positions for $800. And there is a new one also right below that. It's an assignment called In-Demand CTE Certified Teacher. Number of position will be determined, and it's $1,000 per stipend per semester. Down at the bottom of that section, post-secondary dual enrollment, 18 positions, $100 per section. And that concludes CTE. Are there any questions on the CTE proposed stipends?
Can you elaborate on the in-demand CTE certified teacher?
Ms. Norman?
Yeah, Lily's here.
Okay, Lily, come up, sorry. Thank you, Lily.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This
Good
is for teachers that are difficult to fill, such as positions in health science and sometimes family consumer science, due to the fact that they can make so much more money in industry. It becomes a really competitive area to look for highly qualified teachers and to retain them as well.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, before you go.
Sure.
Again, here it says to be determined, in-demand CTE certified teachers. Is it meant to be a determined amount of students, or again, this was a non-applicable?
This is number of
No,
positions.
to be determined would be if that area would be difficult to fill. Sometimes, depending on the pool, it is not difficult. Like sometimes family consumer science can be difficult to find, but this time, during this time of the year, the pool seems to be pretty healthy, so it is to be utilized as needed.
Yeah, I misunderstood the reading of it.
And
It
the
said the
num-
number of students, it's actually number of positions.
Yes.
And it's to be determined the number of positions, but depending on your answer that you just gave us.
Yes, sir.
Fair enough, I understand
Just
that.
want to have the stipend there available in case you need that teacher and you need to find somebody.
Correct.
There you go. Thank you.
I do have a question. Why is the law enforcement sponsor going down from 2,500 to 2,000?
Because at one point, they had competitions during the summer, and when they have competitions during the summer, that allows for those two teachers to get compensated during the summer when they're off contract.
And they're not going to be having those competitions?
They're going to have them during the year because we moved into a different organization.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hill.
You're welcome, sir.
Mr. Miller, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. In the top right of the screen, you'll see dyslexia on page 7 of your handout. It's at the bottom of page 7. So these are new stipends. Certified Academic Language Therapist, CALT, 2 positions for $3,000. And Certified Academic Language Practitioner, CALP, 2 positions for $2,000. And the diagnostician dyslexia, it was covered in a different place, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. So in one position, and that was $800, it's going up to $1,000. Any questions on dyslexia?
Yes, sir, Mr. Suarez.
Okay, so these are stipends, right?
Yes, sir.
So who would get who would get this position? Who would be the CALT? I'm not talking about a specific person, I'm just talking about like who applies for this stipend or this job?
They're the dyslexia teachers that have that certification.
Okay, so what is their role? What's going to be different? What are they getting for $3,000? I don't mean this to be rude or say it wrong.
No.
But what am I getting for $3,000?
Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon. So one of the things that the state's looking at is hopefully getting as many therapists as possible in the schools. those therapists become just a 2-year program that they take, and they actually be able to provide more services in detail for the student, whether it be during school or whether it be after school. But they can work as therapists even at their own business if they want. So the competitive is happening, or competition is happening around. So this is a time for us to start looking at that to make sure we retain. At least right now, we only got 2, and we have almost 40 teachers. So that's something to look at.
So the stipend is just used to retain them?
Yeah, really to be able to then go to school and become therapists
Incentivize them.
instead
to
of
get
just
their
teachers. Yes, sir.
Okay, but their role doesn't change?
No, they become teachers, but they're now therapists. That's what they're going to be now.
So just a really dumb question. How much does it cost for me to take this certification and become certified?
Basically, if you go to school right now, it's between probably 5 and 10 grand
I was gonna say it's-
for 2 years.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah, it's a certification that we need, we don't have in the district, and so we're trying to incentivize them to
I'm with it,
cover the
but
costs.
if I do the math, I'm gonna go spend 10,000 to make 3,000.
But you're gonna work 20 years.
And you can hang your own shingle and do it on the side.
Plus, this is per year.
It makes them a better
Just
teacher.
asking
Mr. Flores,
Hold on, Trustee Suarez, you still?
I'm good, I won't ask anything. I'll call you tomorrow.
Trustee
You already
Flores.
applied
Yes,
for
sir.
assistant athletic coordinator, now you wanna apply for.
Mr. Flores, how many of our teachers on staff, of the 40 teachers that you say, already have this therapist certification?
2 of them, that's it.
2.
One at Houston and one at Pettis Elementary.
Okay. And then I'm going to ask the follow-up, how many of them are already practitioners?
2 of them, they both are.
Same two?
Yeah.
Same 2, but so you're asking for 2 positions at 3,000, and then you're asking for 2 positions as a practitioner.
Okay, so
What's
the way.
the difference between a therapist and a practitioner?
Yeah, so if you become a practitioner, you cannot have your own business on the side or be able to service others. If you're a therapist, you're able to do that, like actually open your own practice if you want. So the deal is that we got 2 of them right now. Our goal is to hopefully increase that in August if this passes by, so we can make sure we get them back in school and have more therapists to support our children.
Got it. Thank you.
One more before everybody bombards me. Just really quick. Just hypothetical, right? So I go and get my certification, I get a $3,000 stipend.
As soon as you're ready.
But now, I start my own business, and I'm making more money. What's my incentive to stay here?
Well, and there it is. It's right there. It's just having to make sure that we.
That's what I was getting at before everybody started bombarding me.
I think our goal is to make sure that we provide our teachers with a good understanding of what our goals are and what we want them to do here. And I think within a year ago, if you would ask me this question, I would tell you they were just actually doing their job as a teacher. Now they're literally buying into it, where they want to stay here and work with us because we're doing a greater job in preparing our students. So I think that makes a difference.
So why do we have a number? To me, it should be like, you have a master's, you get a stipend. You have this certification, you get a stipend. Why did you put a number?
Yeah, the reason we put a number is because when you have a master's, you're actually already receiving a stipend. So it would have been possibly like $5,000, I think. That would have been the total. But since they're already getting one for a master's, we said 3,000 to kind of just even out the board across the district and stuff. That's what we're looking at. Is that correct, sir, Mr.
Yeah, I'm looking, I think it's
Miller? I think so.
You're
Yeah.
getting to.
But this is
Hold on a
beyond a
second,
master's.
Trustee.
This
Oh,
is-
yeah.
You have a master's, now you went and got another 2 years of school. So to me, the more of these that we
Still
have in the
one at a
district, the better. If we have one at every campus, that's even better. So I'd like to see that there not be a number of positions there. It's sort of like, our masters. You have a master's in a content area. This is something else in a content area. If you have that, then the stipend, you acquire the stipend. That's the way I see it.
Trustee Suarez?
If,
No, I was gonna say, I agree with that. I mean, if there's 5 people that wanna do it, then we need to pay the 5 people.
if I may add to the number, is because those are the 2 that are certified.
Right now.
But we want to motivate more dyslexia teachers to go for the certification or masters. And so the number will continue to increase. At least that's what we're hoping.
Yeah, that's not a cap.
Yeah.
We want to approve.
It's just for next
saying
year.
that 2 qualify right now.
That's
But that
correct.
It could be 10 next year.
Why
That's
don't
right.
you just remove the number?
If that confused.
I get you.
We can remove it.
It's confusing.
Yeah,
our
we
side.
can
I get what
remove
you're
it.
It looks like we're only asking for 2 stipends.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you're asking
No,
for
no,
2
no, no.
positions.
We're asking for the stipend, and it can be 20 next year.
Exactly,
Right.
that's correct. That's what we're looking at.
Okay.
And that's the same with all the others also, that those are the positions that we are foreseeing for next year, but we can always
I
remove.
guess it's, you know, like you say band director, you know there's a set amount of band directors, so number of positions, so here you have number, but I understand.
Yes.
How many students do we have currently within the dyslexia?
Right now, sir, we look at the numbers, we have exactly, let me tell you real quick here. We have close to 1,500. 1,500 kids.
Yeah. And you're starting your assessments when, this year?
We did our assessments for kinder in January, and we just finished our assessments for our students for kinder this May. So those are number already projected in there. So we have give or take about maybe 30, 40 students that we will looking at assessing at the beginning of the year. And then we'll put those in there as well and see if they qualify, so.
Yeah, I mean, this is again part of HB 3
Correct.
and the 86th legislative session, and we've heard from our parents very concerned in this area. Hence, you're playing a big role in this. So I would agree with the other trustees, Trustee Elisa and Trustee Suarez and the others, that it's good to hear that this is not a cap, and maybe we need to come up with a better language, but we definitely need to incentivize individuals to get into this role, but we also may need much more than the 2 that we currently have as well.
Correct.
So is their administration going to be looking into the fact that we may have an increase in dyslexia, and while they haven't been incentivized, and obviously there's a time lag of getting individuals to move into that role within the district, so you're going to have to bring them in from outside the district. Is there a plan in that regard for this academic year?
Yes.
Yes, sir, we'll just change it to be determined because it's going to fluctuate as we grow, so.
Yes, but there is a plan. If you look at the demand, and as you start to talk to parents that are very knowledgeable in this particular area, we started to see a common theme, and these parents were asking for these level of therapists, that they were asking us, do you have certified academic language therapists? And at one point, the answer was, no, we don't. And the response was, you should look into it. They're very beneficial to our children. So we started to look into it. The challenge becomes supply and demand right now, and how much they can make in the private sector. That's why we're trying our very best to be competitive with regard to that stipend. But to answer your question, yes, we want to incentivize our staff members to do that and then work very hard to retain them.
Correct.
Now, in other areas of special needs, we do have contract with outside vendors to fill in gaps or needs in the interim. Is that a part of your plan that we may need to bring or hire contract again with others?
Yes, sir. At this point, we do have families that have gone on to individuals that are contracting outside the district. What we're trying to do is provide a service within the district so parents don't have to do that, where we provide the service within. So this is the very beginning of gaining the momentum as we move forward.
Well, again, there's 2 ways you can do this. One is, and it can be a combination of the 2. One is you have a captured employee, which these are. You're talking about captured employees. We hire them, they come to work for us. And the other is you have a contract with individuals to service our population, where the parents aren't paying for it, the district is. We already do this in other areas. So again, is the district planning in this area to contract out while you fill in and attract individuals to come work for us in the meantime?
Okay, maybe I do need to clarify that it's not required that the dyslexia teachers have that certification.
We understand that.
It's always,
I
right.
think we all understand
Yeah.
that. But I think our parents feel that we should have more of those individuals believing, and probably justifiably believing so, that they have a skill set that their children need. And unless somebody's telling me otherwise, or us otherwise, that we can do just as well without this, I've not heard that.
No, at this point, we are very interested in increasing the number. We haven't considered contracting outside. We can look into it, and although it's not a certification requirement for the district, it is a standard that we're setting to make sure that we provide the best services that we can. So this is the very, very beginning of climbing the mountain in this area, but I do want to say that Sal's done a tremendous job in this area, in his time, in this position, so I have 100% confidence that we're going to grow this program, and we're going to turn over every stone to make sure that we provide the services for the 1,500 children that we have that are challenged with this, and we believe that we have the skill set to do that.
And that's correct, sir. And just to give a little bit of feedback also, there's a House Bill 3880 right now on look, and we're waiting to see what the outcome of that will be, and basically it deals with what you're talking about. If that does pass, then things will have to change. If not, then we can start looking at what Dr. Gonzalez is talking about.
All right, fair enough. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions on the board in this area? Mr. Miller, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. Move to page 8, which is the Regional Day School for the Deaf, RSD program. Sorry, let me move back. That's in the bottom right. Several changes in this area. Audiologist assistant, bottom row of the top section, we're just changing the amount stipend from $3,000 to $5,500. You'll see professional staff non-teaching director. These are certification deaf and hard of hearing, DHH certification, hearing impairment, or deaf/hard of hearing. It's $2,000 for that certification. And Texas Assessment of Sign Competency, TASC, or grandfathered from the TASC. That's a stipend for $2,000. Sliding down to the bottom, paraprofessional staff, excuse me. The level on grandfathered just changed to be determined. Certified interpreter level 2, excuse me, former certification or grandfathered to be determined is $3,500. Third line item, Certified Interpreter Board of Evaluation of Interpreters, BEI Basic level, to be determined for $4,000. Next item is Certified Interpreter Board of Evaluation of Interpreters, BEI Advanced level, to be determined for $5,000. And adding a new one, Certified Interpreter Board of Evaluation Interpreter, BEI Master, to be determined for $6,000. Any questions on the proposed RSD stipend?
Hearing none? Go ahead.
Moving to the next slide, the special duty assignments, that's on page 9 of your package. And starting in the second section, you'll see the second line item, lead librarian, parentheses, elementary or secondary, 2 positions, $1,500 per year. And moving straight down towards the bottom of the same section, you see diagnostician dyslexia crossed out. We moved that as we just discussed. And then the district executive committee, DEC, 4 positions, and it's up to $1,500. And you'll see the double asterisk in red. Stipend amount is determined and reimbursed as per DEC plan. That's an athletics stipend. Moving down into the auxiliary staff, you'll see the first 3 line items being crossed out. That's no child left behind. Administration proposed we eliminate that stipend. We're no longer required to provide that NCLB stipend. Sliding on down, you'll see a bunch of transportation additions, certified state vehicle inspector certification, 2 positions, $1,000. Next item is school bus service area certification, body systems and special equipment, 1 position, $150. Diesel engine, to be determined, the remainder are to be determined for $150. Drivetrain, $150. Brakes, $150. Suspension and steering, $150. Electronic systems, $150 stipend, and air conditioning systems and controls, $150.
I got a question. Is this the same person? Do we have a brakes guy? Do we have Mr. Midas? How does this work? Is it like, is this another way of incentivizing somebody to be our mechanic?
Well, yes, but also instead of taking it downtown to pay $500 or whatever that fee is downtown, we have somebody locally that we do it, and we send them, get them certified, and it saves the district money.
So you're telling me like our brake guy fixed brakes for $150 a year?
I think it's for the certification, really?
No, there's 2, are we on the certification one for
Yeah.
inspection?
Yes, for transportation, yes.
So there's 2 stipends that we've added recently in the transportation area. One is so that the mechanic can actually perform the inspection.
Because he's certified.
Correct, he's certified. So therefore, we don't have to go get our vehicles outsourced and inspected outside. We can do it internally. It saves us a lot of time and effort and all of that.
Is it 1 person?
Right now, we have 1 person, but if we had, again, it's one of those where we're not capping it, but if you go and you get that certification, we would give, but right now it is 1 person that we have
And
that does that.
1 person, okay, is this a one-time stipend? Or does he get this
This is on an
continuous?
annual basis.
Annual basis?
Yeah, we've been doing this for.
I think that should be more.
We've been doing this for years.
Get a bigger stipend than that.
Yeah,
That's
so
a huge responsibility.
it is. And they carry their certification and it's on their
Well, we
license.
want our buses to be safe.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if,
So say is to outsource it, right? But there's a huge advantage in having an internal resource that's doing that
I
work
think
for us
that
and
should be more.
doing that.
I honestly think that person or these people that are certified should be hired. Huge responsibility. They're carrying our kids on the daily.
The other one is, there are some specific certifications that we encourage our mechanics to get in order to be better versed in bus.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so that incentive is, that stipend is to incentivize them to earn those certifications in those specific areas.
Any other questions or comments?
Just a quick question on that comment. Do we bring in somebody to certify them, or do they need to go outside and get certified?
Right, just, they go on their own and they take the courses and they get certified.
I guess a question I would have, based on what I've heard so far, is how did we determine the 150 as the stipend?
We work with our director of transportation, so I can follow up with her on the methodology, and we absolutely would be willing and happy to explore raising that amount.
Well, they start with a base salary, and it's an hourly rate for these employees.
That's
And
correct.
they're not on contract.
That's correct.
And so I gathered this, when was the last time, I should ask this question, when was the last time staff looked at these job classes to see what the market rate is for this? Was it done this last year, or has it been a while?
In terms of the pay scales, and we
Yes.
work with HR on this, that was done in 2019.
Yeah.
And also, if I may, TASB looks at these classifications every year when they come to town, and they look at ours in the fall, and then they come in January, February typically to look at each classification for market competitiveness, I guess you would say.
So would it be reasonable to say that these specific positions that we're now talking about were reviewed by TASB in February of 2021?
Well, but TASB's looking at the job title and not like each of these tasks, so I'd have to look at the job description of the mechanic, for example, see how many of these are in there, but, and then compare that to the local districts also.
All right, just so my edification, because maybe I misunderstood. They're reviewing the job classifications or
Yes,
the
sir.
job descriptions.
Yes, sir.
They're doing both those.
Well, yeah, they're looking at what does a mechanic do, and then what's mechanics in local surrounding districts pay for that type of duties.
So they're doing both. And so, again, would it be reasonable to say that in February of 2021, these specific jobs, positions were reviewed by TASB and found that the current salary, without the stipend, is a fair competitive rate compared to our competitors?
Sorry. Yes, I'll answer that with this, if I may. TASB does do equity adjustments if they see that we're out or too compressed, or we're just out of market, outside that, under that 90%. So they'll recommend equity adjustments.
So were any equity adjustments done in February 2021 by TASB to McAllen ISD for these positions?
I don't know. I can find that out. I can look at the transportation related jobs for seeing.
Again, going to what was discussed earlier, I think we need to see the combination of the two. I'm a little concerned if truly there was no change since 2019 within the salary for these individuals, you know. But if it was done in February, then I think we're all concerned as a board that the 150 may not be enough. Maybe a methodology needs to be identified and see if there can be a correction.
I would like to clarify, and I'm not sure, I can't see the size there, but the Certified State Vehicle Inspector certification is a $1,000 stipend. Is that
Yes.
reflected there?
Yes.
Okay, so I
But-
just want to make sure that the certification for the individual that is inspecting the vehicle and giving the inspection sticker, that's a $1,000 stipend
Yes.
annually. The 150 is based on the certification through a learning effort on very specific components of our buses, and it is an extra to what they already have. So it's sort of an extra step. And our goal is for them to get all of these different certifications, so it's 150 plus 150 plus 150, and then it adds up.
So, you said they have to go out to get this certification. They go on their own, so we don't pay for them to get this certification.
We do not.
They pay their own travel, their own expense to get it. You know, again, I see how that can add up if you have several certifications, but I do think that we give some really lofty stipends for other things, and when it comes to the safety of our kids, we should be putting some of that money into making sure that the people that maintain them and service them are getting paid just as much, or just as, well, not just as much, but competitively and well.
Just for, based on what you just mentioned and what Trustee Benya mentioned, if you were to get all 7 at this year, you'd get $1,050 if you get all 7.
But they have to go on their own and get it,
I understand.
and that's, yeah.
I am agreeing with everything you said, and I think we all do, unless somebody sees it different. It's just, I was clarifying to Ms. Benavides, if you went to each one, what it would be. It's only $1,050. Yes, Trustee.
Just from the administration's point of view, we will get together as an ELT, and we will look at those stipends and consider raising them. Point well taken on the importance of those particular tasks, and that they're carrying our precious cargo and everything else. So yeah, this is a baseline for us, and we'll definitely look into raising.
Since we are talking about that real quick, just to be sure, it's not one individual or 2 individuals, and then others are using their certification in order to do the function or the work. In other words, they get certified and only they can do that function. No one else within the department is using that individual's license to do the work.
The certification, the 150 is not a license. They're just certifications with a deeper understanding of the work. That doesn't mean that they are exclusively doing the work.
And I understand, I'm just asking in general terms, when individuals are licensed, and I probably should have prefaced with that. Yeah, I should have prefaced it with that. Whenever these individuals are licensed or certified to do a function, no one else in that department is doing that role with only one person being licensed for
the inspection,
or for anything within the department.
for the inspections, there is a very specific license in order for them to inspect the vehicle and to issue the sticker for that license. That is a very specific license.
Okay.
The rest of the work of our mechanics, they have a certain level of expertise and knowledge, and this is an extra certification that is a benefit to us, but it doesn't exclude them from
Clarifying, that helped me a lot. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Quick question. Since our guys are doing the certification, does that make the district liable for any accidents that would occur? Is that something that, since it's our team guys,
It's our umbrella.
you know, is it under a particular umbrella, or is it, how does that work?
Well, anytime our folks are doing work on behalf of the district is
Is liable?
100% liable.
Okay.
Sure.
Just want to make sure.
For all of our employees.
I think the certifications are good. They make them better at what they do.
Of course.
Exactly.
Exactly right.
You know, and that's great. I just, again, I go back to, I really think it's an important function, whether they have the certification or not. I just think if they've gone that extra mile to get that certification and making them better at what they do, the stipend should, reflect that.
On the converse side is, in some organizations, the employer pays for the class. So maybe that's another way to look at it. Mr. Miller, I think you still have the floor.
I'll move on to the last item, and that's special education program. That's on page 10 of your package. So you'll see on special education, teacher self-contained went from 38 down to 35 as far as number of positions. Preschool teachers for children with disabilities from 7 up to 10. Visually impaired VI teacher from 3 to 2. Social worker from 2 to 1. Diagnostician, from 14 to 17. Special education counselor from 2 up to 3. New one, speech pathology, 16 positions, $1,000 yearly stipend. Speech assistant, 6 positions, $1,000 yearly stipend. Behavior support, 3 positions, $1,000 yearly stipend. Lead department chairs for Strides, 1 position, $2,500. Strides teacher self-contained, 5 positions for $1,200. Jumping down to the next section, certification supplement, lead speech pathologist, 2 positions for $2,500. Speech pathologist, parentheses with masters from 14 up to 16, and that's a $5,000 yearly stipend, and speech assistant therapist from 5 up to 6 for $1,800. It's the very bottom, spatial assignment supplement, adapted physical education, 3 positions, it's new for $1,000 yearly stipend, and adapted physical education, parentheses, Special Olympics went from $2,300 to $1,500. Any questions on special education stipend recommendations?
Any questions from the board? Thank you.
That's my last, that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Appreciate the feedback.
Yes, sir. It's always good when we can have open conversations. Anything else for the administration to bring forward at this time?
No, sir, that does conclude our presentation for tonight.
Very good. Just real quick on ESSER 3, closer look, page 7, presentation May 20th, 2021. It talks about facility improvement, kitchens, HVAC. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay. Does those kitchens include the ones in our high schools for, I forgot what they used to call it. Homemaking, I guess it was my day. I don't know what they call it now.
No, right now that scope does not include those.
Okay. Could it?
I would have to check with instructional since my purview is the food service, but, and I'm not sure to what extent it could expand, but absolutely, but I would have to check with instructional on that.
I would think it's talking about actual kitchens to prepare food for children and staff. I think that's what it would.
Correct.
But
That's the scope.
It's probably good to still ask, but I would also ask administration to look into that area of the facilities for future plans. It's got some feedback from some folks. With that, unless there's any other questions from the board, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by trustee, second by trustee Alicet. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it 6-0. We are adjourned at 6:27. Thank you.
To do